Good morning, my Real News Midday TV family. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning for another news update for Sunday, October 19, 2025. And I'm wishing for everyone a wonderful and a blessed Sunday. And in the news this morning, curfew imposed in Greenville, Manchester. A 48-hour curfew has been imposed in sections of Greenville, Manchester. The curfew began at 6 p.m. on Saturday and will remain in effect until 6 p.m. on Monday. The boundaries of the curfew are as follows. North from an area of vegetation at Gabby Street at the northern boundary, along Gabby Street to a section of the roadway at the Winston Jones Highway in the vicinity of Mactown bus stop. This boundary is bordered by the Mactown community. East from a section of roadway at the Winston Jones Highway in the vicinity of the Mactown bus stop at an eastern boundary, continuing along the Winston Jones Highway to a section of the highway in the vicinity of the Greenville roundabout at the southern boundary, which is bordered by Marshall's Pen and Ward Avenue. South from a section of the Greenville roundabout at the southern boundary, continuing along an imaginary line to a section of the Scottown community, Greenville, to an area that borders the top Greenville. West from the southern boundary that continues along an imaginary line to the vegetated area at Gabby Street at the northern boundary, bordered by top Greenville. During the hours of the curfew, persons within the boundaries are required to remain indoors unless otherwise authorized by the person in charge of enforcing the curfew. 3 arrested in St. Catherine following seizure of gun and ammunition. A teenage girl is among 3 people who were arrested in connection with the 2 separate gun and ammunition seizures in St. Catherine on Friday. 18-year-old Peyton Israel, otherwise called a baby, of Old Harbor, St. Catherine, was charged with unauthorized possession of ammunition following an operation by members of the Area 5 Fugitive Apprehension Team. It is reported that about 5:30 a.m., the Area 5 Fugitive Apprehension Team personnel went in search of a gunman, and while on a dwelling, they encountered Israel inside a back room. The police say 2 7.62 rounds were discovered inside a pair of sneakers in the house. Israel was arrested and later formally charged. A court date is being finalized for her appearance. Meanwhile, detectives assigned to the St. Catherine South Division arrested 2 men in connection with the seizure of an illegal gun and ammunition in the rural community of Bartons in the parish. Reports are that about 7:15 a.m., the police conducted an operation in the community, and during the search of a premises, a 9mm Bersa SA pistol and 22 assorted rounds were seized. The police say the identities of the 2 suspects are being withheld pending further investigation into the matter. Man wins $1.5 million after wrongful arrest over cop's missing phone. J.D. Brown visited the Oracabessa police station in St. Mary on the night of July 8, 2016 to deliver food for a relative in custody. He chatted with the cops on duty at the time and described them as friendly during the 15 minutes he spent at the station. But minutes after he returned home, Brown got a phone call that painted a different picture of those same cops, according to an affidavit he filed in court. The affidavit formed a part of a lawsuit he filed against the government and the 4 cops for wrongful imprisonment and the breaches of his constitutional rights. The Attorney General's chambers, which represented the government, did not file a defense to the lawsuit. Brown recounted that the female cop on the other end of the line, identified in court documents as Constable Stephanie Harrison, inquired if he was the one who just took food and a drink to the Oracabessa police station. Brown said he noticed that the tone in her voice became angry and aggressive after he confirmed that it was him, but the call was accidentally disconnected. When he called back the phone number, a male cop answered and angrily accused him of stealing Harrison's cell phone from the police station and warned that they would send a patrol vehicle for me and throw me in jail if he did not return the device, Brown claimed. He returned to the station about 10:20 p.m. on the same day and claimed that he was immediately surrounded by Harrison and the 3 other cops identified in court documents as Constables Ryan Anderson, Oliver Brown, and Bailey, whose first name was omitted. Brown claimed the cops again accused him of stealing Harrison's phone and became aggressive and behaved in a very intimidating manner, even as he protested that he was innocent. I was immediately grabbed roughly and searched by the police officers. When they did not find the mobile phone, I was then draped up and carried to a filthy and smelly holding area of the police station and told that I would be staying there until I told them what happened to woman Constable Stephanie Harrison's phone, he claimed. Brown claimed that the 4 cops and another colleague again surrounded him inside the holding area and rigorously interrogated and threatened him. They called me a dirty thief and told me that I was dry-eyed for taking the phone. At one stage, one of the officers took a baton and swung it violently in the direction of my face. He stopped the baton only a couple inches from my face, he claimed. He charged that the humiliating and embarrassing actions of the cops happened in full view of other people at the station, including his girlfriend who had accompanied him there and the detainees inside the lockup. Brown claimed that during the 4.5-hour ordeal, the cops told him they would keep him in custody as long as they wanted and that I would be staying in the lockup until I confessed to them what I did with the mobile phone. He said that the abuse, interrogation, and humiliation continued until about 3:50 a.m. the next day, when Bailey told him he was giving me the benefit of the doubt and would let me go home for now. Hours later, while he was at home, Brown's telephone rang, he recounted. It was woman Constable Stephanie Harrison on the line. She told me that they found her mobile phone and that she wanted to apologize for the whole incident, he claimed. Brown charged that during the 270-minute ordeal, he was never cautioned by the police or informed that he had the right to contact an attorney. As a result of this incident, I have been left emotionally and mentally scarred for life. Also, as a result of this incident, I have lost faith and trust in the Jamaican police, he said in the affidavit. At the end of the lawsuit recently, a Supreme Court judge ordered the government to pay Brown a total of $1.5 million in damages. A breakdown of the award showed that $600,000 was for breaches of his constitutional rights, with interest to be calculated at 3% annually from December 2016 when the lawsuit was filed. He was also awarded $200,000 for false imprisonment and $250,000 for assault. Obika Gordon, the attorney from the law firm Frater, Ennis and Gordon, which represented Brown, explained that the award for false imprisonment was based on the 4.5 hours he was in the custody of the police. Further, Gordon said the award for assault was not so high because Brown was not physically assaulted. But you don't have to be touched to be assaulted. Once somebody puts you in reasonable apprehension of fear, then you have been assaulted, he explained. Brown was critical of the judicial system, the police, and what he described as the insufficient amount awarded to him. Them should have given me more money. Remember, said them wrong me totally, Me did innocent right through, he said during an interview with the news on Friday. Brown said he now lives in fear of policemen and women, noting that he still encounters the same cops in the community. So me can't stay one place. This minute, me there my mother. This minute, me there my brother. This minute, me there so. Me still fear, he said. PNP calls on CARICOM Chair Holness to address the U.S. military strikes in Caribbean. People's National Party Shadow Minister of Foreign, Regional and Diaspora Affairs, Senator Donna Scott Motley, is calling on Prime Minister Andrew Holness in his capacity as chairman of CARICOM to consult the member states to forge a unified regional response to reports of U.S. military strikes against the vessels in Caribbean waters, expressing grave concern about the strikes which have resulted in the death of dozens, including 2 Trinidadians, and the detention by the U.S. Army of 2 others of undisclosed nationality. She warned that these actions threaten the sovereignty of the region and the security of its people. The Caribbean community has long promoted the vision of this region as a zone of peace, she said. That principle is not symbolic. It is a binding commitment to peaceful coexistence, respect for sovereignty, and the strict adherence to international law. The reported use of armed drones and lethal force in our waters without a transparency or judicial process represents a direct threat to that commitment, the opposition senator added. Scott Motley noted that fisherfolk and coastal communities across Jamaica and the wider Caribbean are now deeply unsettled, with many expressing fear that they could be misidentified or caught in the crossfire of military operations. Our people are entitled to pursue their livelihoods free from the shadow of militarization, she said, adding, these waters sustain life and commerce. They are not to be transformed into a theater of war. We cannot remain silent in the face of actions that compromise sovereignty, human rights, and the rule of law. Noting that CARICOM has always chosen diplomacy and cooperation over force, Scott Motley emphasized that the region's tradition of non-alignment and peaceful dispute resolution is one of its greatest strengths. She called on wholeness to safeguard that legacy by meeting with the regional leaders to consider priorities, including clear reaffirmation by all CARICOM member states of the Caribbean as a zone of peace and a full respect for international legal norms, including the right to life, due process, and the sovereignty of states. The Caribbean cannot afford to normalize extrajudicial actions in its waters, Scott Motley concluded. As a region, we must stand together to ensure the principles of peace, sovereignty, and international law continue to guide our future. Guys, thanks for watching. Please join us this afternoon at 2 p.m. for another news update.